One of the reasons that I return to reading time and time again when I need comfort is because I have these fond and extremely strong memories of being a child, getting the opportunity to pick up a YA fantasy that I'm really excited about from the library and get in my bed and get all comfy and cozy and read it until all hours of the night as a kid and completely escape my life. And I have really just been trying to recreate that feeling ever since. Two fantasy books that I'm currently reading, they're getting there. They are certainly getting there. They're making me giddy. They make me want to stay up all night and read them. And I have very high hopes for them. So the first one is Shield of Sparrows. I am buddy reading this with a friend who is, I am happy to report, equally enjoying this one. But essentially this follows the main character, who is the eldest daughter to her father, but the least favored daughter. Her sister has always been raised to be a queen and has been taught in archery and fighting and politicking and all of those things. Whereas the main character, or Odessa, has spent her life being shielded, being hid, being made to dye her hair brown and wear drab clothing so that she doesn't draw attention to herself and draw attention away from her sister. This fantasy world is constantly in upheaval because there's a creature called the Crux. And I'm kind of picturing them as like gargoyles almost. I don't necessarily know that that is the most apt description, but I'm picturing them as like giant gargoyles. They were created by the gods and they come in and wreak havoc on humanity. In order to prep for that, there is something called the Sparrows, like alliance between all of the kingdoms, and the humans kind of band together in this one treaty, even though they have some animosity between the kingdoms. And the treaty kind of ensures that each kingdom has a stake in the other kingdom's success and longevity by marrying their princesses off to their enemy, the other kingdom's kings. So at the beginning of the story, Odessa's sister, Mai, is supposed to marry Prince Xavier of a rival kingdom. And they arrive with Prince Xavier and his band of guards and this person named the Guardian. They come a little bit earlier than intended because they are supposed to seek out a boon from Odessa's father by killing some creatures that are wreaking havoc in their ports. And it's like 8 milliweeds, which again, I picture like giant stingrays, basically. They're supposed to kill them for them, bring them back, and, have a feast, all that kind of stuff. And Odessa's father hopes that this will encourage Prince Xavier to marry May a little bit faster. What he is not anticipating is that they will kill 7 melloweeds, and this demands a bride prize in response. So Prince Xavier gets to choose a bride prize, meaning he gets to choose what bride he wants. And of course, rather than picking Mai like they all intend, they pick Odessa. As soon as she is picked, they tell her that really this has been a ploy the whole time. The only reason that they want Mai to get married to this prince is because he rules over this very secretive, the very lavish, hidden city that has something in it that her father wants. So he wants her to marry the prince and essentially spy on the kingdom. This puts Odessa in kind of a bad way because part of the oath is a blood oath that she makes to the prince, and she cannot physically harm the prince without then harming herself. So her family is really putting her in a bad situation. But overall, this world is so fascinating. I'm so interested to see all of the fantasy elements play out. I have a suspicion about the way that the romance is going to go, but I do know that this is quite a slow burn story, and I'm not mad about it at all. I prefer my fantasies to have a slow burn romance to them. That being said, I have read several things from Devney Perry, specifically from her Eden something series. And I was a fan of her writing style, but I was not a fan of the way that she wrote her stories, if that makes sense. Like, I liked the syntaxes, the basic structure of her stories, the basic writing, but I didn't like the way that they progressed. I'm not a romantic suspense sort of person, and so a lot of the books have early hookups, or the romance is really not like as intense as I would want from a contemporary romance. So I was not a big fan of what I had read from her contemporary romance selection. But I find her writing to fit right into what I would want from a fantasy. Descriptive, it's not overly flowery, it gives you enough information about the world without being like an info dump, or without you feeling like you've been dropped into this incomprehensible mess. And then I also am reading Arcana Academy. This is by Elise Kova. I have again read something from Elise Kova before, wasn't the biggest fan, but I have heard rave reviews about this one. It starts very much like Throne of Glass. We have a main character who has been locked in a pretty rough labor camp because of some crimes that she committed by accessing private information and recreating tarot cards, which is what this world's magic is based off of. The usage of tarot cards in different ways to create different magics. And while she's in the prison, she then uses that talent to create cards for whatever the main prison leader guy is called. And the crown prince gets word of this. So he shows up and he basically tells her, either you're gonna come work for me, and you're going to give me all of the information on how on the outside you were figuring out how to ink these cards and how you were getting all of this private information, or we're going to kill everybody that you love. And she knows that her sister is at Arcana Academy, which the prince is the headmaster of, and has ready access to her. So she can't really lie about where she's getting this access from, because she sort of suspects that he already knows, but she also doesn't want to implicate her sister. She tries to escape, falling right into his clutches, and he takes this opportunity to knock her out and escort her to Arcana Academy. He pretends that she is the long-lost heir of a clan that he actually slaughtered wholesale with his own magic, and that she is his fiancée. She has to go through the process of becoming a student at Arcana Academy. She has to go through some trials. She has to get picked by a house. They have the option to choose her or not. And then if she fails out of the academy or she doesn't get chosen, she basically goes back to a labor camp to then mine the materials that they use to create these tarot cards. Again, I'm only 20% of the way through this one as well, but it's constructed incredibly well. This is probably the best instance of this author's writing that I have seen in the past books that I have read by her. It's just very juvenile, very one note, very flat, but I'm completely sucked into this world. Every single time I pick it up, I'm so fascinated to see where we're going to go. I'm interested about the character dynamics between the main character and the hero. They genuinely hate each other. The hero is responsible for the death of her family. She has a ton of secrets that connect to him, and she has plenty of reason to hate him, and at this point her skin crawls whenever he is near. But the assumption is, like, obviously he's the hero. So as well as Shield of Sparrow, with this one, I'm just fully all in. I love the reading experience. I'm so invested in the characters, and the magic system is fascinating. I played Expedition 33 a couple of months ago, a while back, at the end of last year, and there's a character that was my favorite character that dealt with tarot cards, that used tarot card magic, and I thought it was so interesting, and I'm definitely enjoying the magic system in this one. Like I said, I'm just feeling giddy and inspired by both of these novels. I really, really hope I love them, and we're supposed to get a massive snowstorm this weekend again, and that means that I'm going to be spending all my time reading these books because I'm just so excited. So, it is Saturday morning. I am freshly showered. I got my legs out for max comfiness, and I'm in my comfy spot. We're supposed to get some snow later, so I'm nice and warm, and I'm locked in. on this reading. I'm gonna do a ton of reading today because I am so in love with Shield of Sparrows that it's all I can think about. Last time we talked, I hadn't gotten too terribly far into the story, but at this 50% mark, there is so much has happened and so much that's currently going on. A good portion of the beginning of the novel was spent with Odessa traveling from her kingdom to her old kingdom to her new kingdom, where she's now queen or princess, I guess. And it's spent on a ship, and there is some amazing Pirates of the Caribbean like scenes in the novel where their ship is being attacked by sea monsters. They make it to their kingdom. The kingdom is called Tura. Like I said in a previous clip, Odessa is being sent there with the mission by her father to spy on Tura's main secretive city that has something that her father wants. Her father claims that the thing that he wants is supposed to stop the migration of the Crux, the flying creatures that destroy humanity every so often. Every time Odessa even mentions this secret city, there's a lot of grief. Everybody gets quiet. Nobody really wants to talk about it. They don't explain anything. They just kind of brush it off. So we're traveling from city to city with Xavier's guards, the Guardian, Xavier being her husband, the Guardian, Odessa's ladies' maids, and just like a retinue of guards. Along the way, we're having the fantastical creatures attacking the city that they're in, or attacking them on the road. And we're also getting these tension-filled little tidbits of the Guardian and Odessa flirting, because the Guardian is training Odessa how to fight. Odessa isn't told this directly, but she later finds out that the Guardian was tasked with her safety, so he's been, by her side pretty much the whole time. And they have such a delightful relationship. And I think the reason that the relationship works so well, obviously Devney Perry is a romance author, but I appreciate the ways that she's tackling her first fantasy romance. As far as I know, this is her first. It's certainly her first largest that's gotten the most popularity, it's very sparse, they don't really talk a ton. There isn't a lot of interaction between the two of them, and when there is, it's explosive chemistry. So you're just fixing for that next moment of them together, because when they are together, it's just so giggly and fun. Little itty bits that Devney Perry gives us just work so well to prolong that feeling of Also doing a fantastic job of creating a really suffocating experience, a really suffocating environment for the characters that really feeds into the reading experience. So we obviously have these human-ish cities, these human-ish kingdoms. I say ish because there's talk of other things going on, like the Guardian might not being fully human and stuff like that. We have these human cities that are concerned about their own political machinations and things, but at large we have these massive fantastical creatures that are just constantly attacking them and presenting civilization ending catastrophic damage, coming into cities, murdering tons of people, other layer of tension on top. And it's quite interesting to see, because I don't think that I have read a fantasy romance in particular. Humans or fae are not the top dog, where they're second to these fantastical creatures in the way that it's written in this story. There are definitely other fantasy romances that they talk about these mythical creatures like dragons and things like that that are superior and that are stronger, but they never present a story-altering, character-altering problem in the way that Devney Perry has set it up, which just makes the world feel so alive. Because I'm following these characters on the road, and I know that at any minute they could be attacked by these like gargantuan wolves. There's always something going on, even if we're, you know, just sitting with our characters and letting them have a moment to breathe. There's something going on. Odessa has a greater purpose. So we're sitting with our characters, we're learning more about Xavier, we're learning more about what's going on in the city. It's fast-paced, it's fun, it's tension-filled, the romance is giggly, like it's everything that I could want. Right now, there's just so many secrets. Like I said, we don't know a lot about Tura. We don't know a lot about Xavier. There's definitely some secrets being hidden. We know that the king of Tura, Ramsey, has lost his mind a little bit. He's going from city to city and burning books. He's removing guards from like towns to force them to move other places. Like he's not prioritizing the safety of his people, and we know that he's just like losing it a little bit, but we don't really know more than that. Like Odessa is not really being told, and so with the addition of books being burned and information being burned, we're really struggling to learn more to fulfill Odessa's task. But she's just kind of like always on the back foot, which I really enjoy. As far as Arcana Academy is concerned, I'm not as into it. It's slowed down a little bit. We're in this gap, and it's probably because I've been prioritizing Shield of Sparrows, because my buddy Reed is also loving it, and she's just like flying through it, so I'm like trying to keep up with her. Arcana Academy, I'm definitely reading much slower. I'm almost to 40%, I think. I haven't read too terribly much of it since we last talked, but we're in this lull between, I can't remember what the main character's name is. The main character is trying to settle into the academy, go through the trials, learn the lay of the land still, and find her footing and meet her fellow initiates. So it was all really fast-paced in the beginning, and we're getting into kind of a lull. And so because I'm so interested in Shield of Sparrows and I'm so into it, I'm struggling to like get back into that one. So I probably am going to prioritize Shield of Sparrows at this point and then pick up Arcana Academy, but I will definitely come back to you when I have some Shield of Sparrows updates. All right, I'm 90% of the way through Shield of Sparrows, and before I go into the last 10%, because I know it's gonna piss me the hell off, I want to talk about where we're at, because Stephanie Perry has done, like I said before, such a fantastic job of blending the fantasy with the romance, which is not something that I commonly see with fantasy romance. Usually one outweighs the other. It tends to be the romance outweighing the fantasy. Woven all of these different fantastical elements with the romance so well. Shocked that I'm enjoying this as much as I did, or I am. I know it had kind of mixed reviews, but it's definitely popular for a reason, and the fact that we have to wait until April for the second one, I'm not gonna be able to do it. I'm not gonna be able to do it. Like, this ending, I can just feel is going to be so frustrating in the best way, and I'm gonna want to pick up the second one immediately, and it's not out yet. Probably going to be a 5-star. I'm like waiting until I get, you know, all the way to the end to say for sure it's gonna be a 5-star, but I adore the romance. I adore all of the elements together and individually. I am so fascinated by this fantasy world, all of these creatures, and the political machinations that are going on, the big secrets that are being held. I can see so much potential for our heroine's character going forward, for Odessa, and I think her romance with the Guardian is just like elite. So, like I said, 10% left. I'm freaking obsessed with it, so I'm gonna go finish listening to the audiobook, play a little solitaire on my phone, and just lose my mind. Stephanie Perry is evil, and I need a minute.
A few moments later.
Okay, so the last 10% was about what I expected. There was some stuff in there that I was not expecting, but it did destroy me in every way that I anticipated that it would. So, this is a 5-star, and I will pick up any fantasy romance that Stephanie Perry writes in the future. I need the second book desperately, and this, depending on how my year goes, might be in my top reads of the year. I know that's bold to say on January 31st, but this was incredibly strong. Incredibly strong. Like, I have no notes. I think it was so good. I couldn't even, sometimes when I finish a book and I'm like, oh, that was a 5-star, I sit back and think about it and I can start coming up with some things that I did not like or like problems, and I can't think of a single one. So okay, I am 50% of the way through Arcana Academy, and I wanted to update you guys before I finish it. I will admit that I am feeling a little bit book hungover after Shield of Sparrows, which could be affecting my opinion of this book. Or it could just be very boring. I ended up picking up the audiobook for this so that I could play my little ranch sim while listening to this story. And the beginning first like 30% were incredibly strong with this. The magic system in the world that Elise Kova has built with this book, I think, is really strong. I think the minutia of the story are where it falls apart a little bit. From last time I updated to now, the main character, Clara, is really just going to school, going to class, and trying to figure out how to find out what's going on with her sister, who, like I said, was at the academy previously and went missing, and also how to escape the situation that she's in. She has this fake engagement with the prince who runs the academy, and they have kind of a tenuous relationship. Since then, they have come to kind of an understanding, a mutually beneficial agreement between them, in which Clara will help him create this card that he can then use to take down his father, and in return he will help her find her sister. And I mean, she intends to take the card for herself once it's actually drafted, but that's sort of their agreement. And they have kind of a sweet-ish relationship as well, budding between them. But mostly we just have the same repetitive conversations and the same repetitive thoughts going on with Clara. Making friends within the academy, she's learning things about her own magic and some of the political machinations that are going on. And I would say those are the bright spots within the story, but largely this is overly long and bloated with meaningless stuff. Clara going to classes, Clara like investigating stuff, and it ends up going nowhere and it means nothing for the plot, and these seemingly meaningless conversations with other characters that aren't progressing the plot or the relationships with the characters. So it just feels it feels like a slog to get through, whereas Shield of Sparrows was I think some people thought it was a little bit slow, but I thought it was incredibly interesting with the way that the mythical creatures were interacting with the main character and the people around her and all of that. We don't have much going on here. I think if you were to compare them side by side, Arcana Academy would be much more packed with things, but it feels like everything is just really drawn out. That being said, the thing that's keeping me going with this story is 100% the magic system, because the idea of using tarot cards, crafting tarot cards, and the different ways that tarot cards gift the user's magic is very interesting. And the setup for how magic is accessed is interesting. Of course, the main character is something of a chosen one, and she has, you know, ability beyond the normal, and she's super strong. The magic system itself is quite intricate. There's a lot of secrets going on with how it actually works, and it also has a level of like political and civil unrest in the country that Clara is very much, is very much a part of. While she's trying to get back to her found family and find her sister and all of that, she's embroiled in these efforts to make the world better. There are definitely parts of the story that I'm enjoying. I think the audiobook is great, and I'm liking the secrets that we're getting about the world. I don't like the main character herself. I find her to be a little bit flat, and her motivations to me don't feel very strong. Obviously, they're very typical, like, heroine in a fantasy romance motivations, but she doesn't feel like a real person, and I wouldn't say the hero does either. I don't find his character very compelling, and I don't find their romance to be that interesting. But I could see this being a story that I really enjoy following, but I, you know, pick up the second book too and read the rest of the series, and that ends up changing. The story that comes to mind for me is the Throne of Glass series. It's kind of hard to not make that comparison because they do start in a very similar place, but with that series, I would say the first couple of books are incredibly weak. Selena is not someone that you root for, that you enjoy, but as the story in the series goes on, there's so many plot lines and character developments that just make the books flourish, make the series flourish into this stunning story by the end of it. I obviously have my own issues with that series, but that's what it's calling to mind. Kind of those early Throne of Glass books where it's like, I don't know, there's a glimmer here, there's a spark here of something good and strong, and I think if you can create a solid foundation with your fantasy world, with an interesting and intricate magic system, then the rest can kind of improve off the backs of that. So it's by no means hopeless, but at the moment I'm just not terribly obsessed with it like I was Shield of Sparrows. So I am going to finish it. Obviously, I'm going to continue listening to the audiobook, and like I said, the audiobook is a great experience, but I cannot see this being anywhere close to a 5-star. Depending on how the latter half goes, it could be a 4-star, but I will say this first 50% has for sure been like 3-star, high 2-star situation. So I will definitely come back to you when I am done and give you my final thoughts. All right, so I guess we can talk about my closing thoughts on Arcana Academy. I didn't really like this much more in the last 50% than I did when I updated you previously. All of the things very much still stand at the end of the novel. I don't think that it landed very well. I don't think that it ended very well. I was not endeared to the characters by the end of it, and I still do think that there are glimmers and sparks of hope with the magic system and the political machinations that are going on, but the characters themselves feel very flat. The romance itself, I don't care either way for, and overall, very disappointing on the back of Shield of Sparrows. I will read the next book in the series. I don't know if it's out, when it's out, what have you, but should it come up available on my library again, I will pick it up, and I'm not too mad about it. It kind of gave me all of the like fun giggly feelings that I was looking for with these two books. Definitely not as good as Shield of Sparrows, but alas. That being said, I definitely am itching to continue to read some fantasy romance. This definitely just spurned my desire for that strong nostalgia, but I'm considering picking up some reread. I don't know what I'm gonna read, but that is it for this video. I would love to talk down below your thoughts on anything that I read. What fantasy romances have you read recently and loved? I'm always looking to expand my TBR. Don't forget to subscribe if you're looking for more content like this from me. I post media and book related videos whenever I feel like it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in my next one.